Hey, another day working on the main hoop again. I did a little bit of work since the last video, so I'll catch you up. All I've really done is not even fabricate. I just kind of fitted these spreader plates down. This side didn't take much, just one bend. This side took a fair amount, and as you can see, to help fit it, I busted out the Harbor Freight flux core welder. If you don't know a flux core welder, it doesn't require a shielding gas like a MIG welder does. It looks very similar to a MIG welder. The gun here, as this wire comes out, it has a coating, and as that coating burns, it creates a shielding gas. This is the first welder I ever got. That's how I learned how to weld. It makes really ugly welds, but it does work. So you can see I tack welded this thing in just to hold it, and this one I did 3 because that one was a little more challenging. All right. If we look here, we've got a little bit of a gap to the bottom, and this side's sitting flush against this edge. So what I'm gonna do is mark this side. Basically, I'm going to sand off some of that to allow it to sit down a little bit farther. Also around the front, we have more of a gap, and that's partially because this thing is cut flat and it's leaning back at an angle. I believe right now it's about 6 degrees rearward, which, as I explained earlier, the rules are 0 to 10. I might lean it forward a little bit more. I'm gonna try and get it somewhat in the middle there, so there's no question about if this makes the rules or not. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark these poles where I need to grind them down a little bit, and we're just gonna work on fitting this pole until they sit pretty flush on these plates. Might be wondering what I'm doing and why I've got a hole saw on the end of my drill. As you saw with the roll cage, the main hoop goes all the way from the floor up pretty close to the ceiling. And there's going to be bars that are connected to the top of the main hoop. Now, in order to weld all the way around all those bars, you need access to the top of the main hoop, which, as it's sitting in the car, you don't have room to do it. Now, there's a couple options for this. There's basically you can build a box that raises the bottom of the tube up, and then you pull the box out on all 4 corners. The whole roll cage drops down far enough for you to weld up all the welds that you need to do. Then you raise the cage back up, you slide the boxes under and weld the boxes to the car. There's another option, which is the one I'm gonna do, where you basically drill holes through the floor of the car so that once you get the whole roll cage kind of tacked in place, sitting on these spreader plates, you slide the you slide these spreader plates out of the way, the whole cage drops down, and then you weld up everything you need to weld. Then you raise the whole cage back up, slide the plates in, and then weld the cage to the plates and the plates to the car. Finally, the other option that I saw on the forums, and this one's a bit of a 24 Hours of Lemons specific case, is you just cut a big old hole in the roof and peel the roof panel back so you can gain access to those seams and weld them up from the top. While that's undoubtedly probably the easier option as long as you don't really care about your car, I'm using this as an experience to try and learn in how to do a cage in a way that doesn't involve destroying the roof of the car, because eventually I want to be able to put cages in, like, say, a drag car, or maybe a street cage in an aggressive street car. So I'm using this as an opportunity to kind of learn how I like to do things, how I want to do it, in a way I think I would do it. So I have here a 2 1/4 inch hole saw, which is a 1/2 inch larger than the tube. I'm hoping that gives me enough room to kind of shimmy the cage around as I need to, but not too large that a huge part of the floor underneath the spreader plates is missing. So I'm going to drill a hole roughly where the tubes will go, put the spreader plates back in, then set the main hoop in, and then probably once again tack the spreader plates and everything in, and then start building the rest of the cage off of that. And then once I got it all tacked in, I can again cut the tack welds, slide the plates out. I don't know if I need to tack weld the spreader plates in, we'll see. I'll probably get everything in place without. We'll see. We'll see, I don't know yet. But let's cut a hole in the floor. To be honest, I've been avoiding this a little bit because it's kind of scary to punch a big old hole in the floor of your car, but we got to do it, might as well get it done. And this is a perfect car to practice on. In case you didn't really understand what I was talking about with the spreader plates, moving them out of the way. So this is now my hole. Give you some reference, this is roughly center, or how I'm gonna center the tube up. You see, just because I had trouble getting it to bite, I ended up drilling a little forward. Not a big deal. So the spreader plate is gonna sit roughly like this. You're gonna put the main hoop back on the plates just like they were, and it's gonna sit just like this. Then I'll tack the main hoop to the spreader plate so it doesn't move. and then build the whole rest of the cage. So I'll have the main hoop, I'll put the harness bar in here, have the, I think I'm gonna try and build the front down tubes in one piece. So I'll build the front down tubes, put the lateral bar across those, put the dash bar in, and then you have to have two 45-degree bars coming off the main hoop back here. Once I get all that, you slide out these plates, and then the whole roll cage will drop. So if this is your tube, or it was, you can see it'll drop down quite a bit. That'll bring it down, I don't know, what is that, a good 8-10 inches, something like that. Drop this back part down as far as we can, drop the front down, final weld the entire cage, then you lift it back up, put these plates back in place, then weld everything to the car. But to get good measurements of the front down tubes, I'm gonna get a plumb bob so that I can make reference points laterally off the frame, because I'm not entirely sure how else to accurately measure the bar. So the problem I'm looking at is the main hoop, the curve actually follows this fairly closely. So you're gonna have your front attachment point right in this area, and I want it to go slightly out to follow this roof line. And then as you can see, about where the windshield, where it has to make the turn to follow the A-pillar down, it's also got to angle out a little bit, and then from there you're gonna have to turn it straight down, which is not only going to be a turn down, but angle a little bit to make it straight again. I'm just not entirely sure without a plumb bob how to best measure that, because I'm kind of measuring in space. I think a plumb bob's going to be easiest. That's pretty much going to be it for tonight. I think tomorrow I'm going to buy a plumb bob and start doing all the measurements and try and get it figured out in the software. I've got the roll bar tacked in place, at least in the bottom. It's not perfect. The plates are angled a little bit up, but it'll at least hold everything in place. Now what I'm going to do is try measuring out for the front down tube, which I'm going to try taking all the way from the roll cage, or the main hoop, sorry. The main hoop all the way forward to the A-pillar, so one continuous bar. Alright, so in the software, you start from a reference point. I think what I'm going to do, since I have the main hoop here, is I'm going to use that mid curve as the reference point and then measure everything based off that. Alright, pardon my chicken scratching in the mess a little bit, but this is basically what I came to. So my reference point, this is a top view, was 7 inches in from the edge of the frame rail. Then the midpoint of the first bend was 5 1/16 inch from the edge of the frame rail. And then basically it's going to go in and this picture isn't accurate, but to 0 inches from the frame rail. So that should, as my center point, put the tube half on, half off, which I'm gonna build a little box to extend it, so don't get too concerned about that. And then this is the side view. So we have 41 1/8 inch tall from the frame rail. Oh, but if I'm using this as a reference point, no, it should still work, because I'm just gonna have to do some math to use this as a reference point and then move the bend down from this measurement. Okay. After measuring, remeasuring a couple times, and then I think measuring again, and then going through and making the part several times in the software, I've got it to where I'm happy with it. Basically, to sum it up, the part itself is about 81 inches long. And then there's clamp 1, so this is my clamp 1 spot, bend 1, clamp 2. Now these are offset about 18 degrees. So in the Bendtech software, this one is actually 0. And then this one is offset 18 degrees, which it has positive, which means you rotate the part clockwise. Worst case, it bends it the other way and I end up making the other side, because they should be pretty much the same part, just one is gonna be bending the other way. So let's see how this goes. This right here was the down bar that I bent, with the goal being to go straight from the main hoop all the way forward. The angle, so there's a little bit of an angle, ended up being way too much, so it shot the bar too far into the main hoop. And I didn't want to do that, because I want all the rear down bar, the front down bar, or what I'm getting to is going to be a halo, and then the anti-sag bar up the middle. I want them all to connect into the same point on the main hoop, which is the center part of the top of the turn. So I kind of marked it right here. This is where I want the bars to land, and so the rear down bar will come on the opposite side, and then the diagonal will connect to one of these. So what I decided is, instead of sacrificing this entire tube, I'm still going to use it, but I'm now going to make a halo. And a halo basically goes from the main hoop forward, across the front, and then back to the main hoop. So you got one bar, 2 turns, and then you'll connect the front down bar to the front part of the halo. This is originally what my plan was when I was first looking at doing the roll cage, and then I changed my mind. I guess we're back to it. So anyway, I did a little work off camera. This is going to be the halo. It's currently cut to length. I did all the measurements. Here's what it's gonna look like. So as you can see, it's narrower in back where it connects to the main hoop, and that's because it's connecting partway through those curves. And then it's gonna widen out a little bit to meet the front, but it's just 2 bends. Now, these bends are over 90 degrees. And that's one of the benefits of the tube bender I got, is that it can do really 180 degrees. Let's bend up this tube. Hopefully it fits. Once again, I might be making a mistake, but I want it to fit tightly, which could come back and bite me if this is too tight. But I don't think it is. I left a 1/2 inch of clearance with my measurement across, which should be a good 1/4 inch on each side. Hopefully that's enough. Let's get to bending. Time to start working on notching the tubes. So I watched a video to try and figure out the best way to do this. So here, this measurement is basically 1/4 of the tube diameter. And then basically we're just drawing a straight line. Because I only have this, we can only cut straight lines. So I'm going to cut a straight line in both of these all the way around, and then start working on rounding it off. And this is going to be a slow, tedious process, because the more perfect I can make this tube notch, the better my template is going to be. And then the template is going to be the basis for all the remaining notches I make, or at least 90 degrees on this one. So if we look, we're somewhat close there. Alright, my template notch is complete. See, it fits pretty well. These edges, when you actually make the tube, it'll bevel down. Alright, got template made. Let's see if we can notch some tube. Alright, I didn't record it because I got interrupted and just decided to try and get it done, but I did initial fitting. It does fit. However, I think I'm going to add a couple bends in, and they're just going to be along this way, and just going to kink this about 10 degrees. So right now, what's going on is it's starting here, and then it's kind of going all the way down to about right here. So there's a big gap right here. What I'm going to do is add a little, I'm going to bring it to 10 degrees. And then there's probably going to be a couple degrees spring back in the material, but then I can run it pretty straight, and then it'll kink down a little bit and come down. It'll just tuck it up a little bit closer to the roof. Oh, that's what I'm gonna do, and then I'm going to do the initial cut for the notching, and then put it back in and see how it fits. Alright, this isn't exactly where it's gonna end up, but this is pretty close. So it's just resting on these clamps right now, so it's not perfect, but you can see, maybe go back, this little bit of a bend. It just kind of keeps this up a little bit higher, because before it went straight down. there. That's a little tight right there. Once I notch it, then we'll actually start kind of fitting it in place. Like this isn't exactly, but we'll actually get it fit in place and held in place, tack it, probably keep this support up. Yeah, I think putting a little kink in it was a good move after looking at it. I like it. You can't even see it from outside anymore. Before you could just see the bar coming down below this weather strip, but now it's tucked up there pretty nicely. I didn't record really any of the fitting of this halo bar because who wants to watch me pull this thing in and out a whole bunch and grind it down. But I got this thing fitted and tack welded in. If you can see that, it's tack welded. I have it held up front by some zip ties, and then I just have this piece of wood kind of holding the main hoop forward so it's kind of pressed together. I think right now I'm gonna put the seat in and just double check how it is. Right here I've got just about a finger at the closest spot, just barely between the side of the roof here, in front of the harness bar, or sorry, the front of the halo. Let's get the seat in, see how it fits. Is that 4 or 5 inches maybe? With the helmet, you'll be down to a couple inches. I think that's going to be acceptable. So this is essentially the view from the driver's seat. Honestly, this roll bar right here doesn't even take up any of the room though. I mean, the windshield's still probably doesn't even start for like another 1/4 inch or so.